Good morning, the holy and queer one be with you.
You guys, you know I'm not going to be able to keep my personal bias out of this, right? Let's get the gear going and let's record this one.
Welcome to Faithcast, a Faith in the Forest ministry. Be sure to hit that notification bell to stay up to date on great new content. Now, here is your host, Pastor Keith.
Hey everybody, welcome to Faithcast, where we share the truth and love without pushing religion. Okay, first and foremost, with the prayer that this young lady had, there will be a video forthcoming that I'm going to address the biblical aspect of that, because I don't care where you stand on the issue of human sexuality, you do not get to try and redefine who God is. Okay, see, I'm going to put that aside now. Next video, we'll talk about it. Okay. Today, I just want to focus on the United Methodist split and how it's trickling into other organizations. As most of you already know, your pastor in a United Methodist church is appointed to you by your conference. In fact, if you don't know, I have a video out on it. You can check it out on my channel. Speaking of which, I really struggle with asking this. I know I've brought this up before, but if you haven't subscribed, I really ask you to subscribe to the channel. Leave comments. I love it when we have comments and interaction on the videos. Hit the like button. That really helps. And I'm bringing this up more now because there's a corporate influx from Hollywood that is starting to infiltrate YouTube, and they're just burying small independent channels like ours. So the more you guys can help us out, just think about it as doing, a good ministry. That's where we are right now in terms of little YouTube channels. We're like the Good Samaritan that, we're the guy laying in the ditch, and we need the Good Samaritan to help us out. So subscribe, hit the like button. Okay, back to the video. So your pastor is appointed, and you don't really get a say on where this pastor comes from. But with this impending split, this is going to have a lot more to do with it. And I want to use an example back when I was attending a United Methodist church. And I sort of like this, that we're looking at a video from Duke Divinity, and the pastor in question that I have was also from Duke Divinity. So yeah, this is where I'm going to get personal again, I know. And how do I know that our pastor was from Duke Divinity? Because she let us know that every spring when March Madness would come around, during our prayer time, one of the first things she would bring up is that we needed to pray for the Duke Blue Devils during the basketball tournament in the NCAA finals. Really? You came to a small community where the major employer lost hundreds of workers because of a backroom deal between the CEO and the union. So not only did hundreds of people lose their jobs, but just as many people actually lost their pensions. And our entire town was in shambles trying to rebuild itself, redefine itself. All of the local industry, local businesses were gone. But sure, yeah, come on into our little town and we'll pray for your blue devils. That's my personal bias. I always see Duke as this highbrow, better-than-thou university, and people who graduate from it look down on small rural people like us. Maybe that's not true, but that's been my experience. And now, that's what brings me to the big issue of what are you going to do now? If we look at Duke Divinity, if we just look at Duke University, now Duke was always attached to the United Methodist Church. In fact, for most of its existence, its board of trustees had to be voted on and approved by two separate annual conferences in North Carolina. That didn't end until 2016. And really, even when it was done, it was just a formality. And they just ended it. And if you look at Duke's official stance, they consider themselves to be a non-denominational university. But they are listed as one of the primary seminaries for the United Methodist Church. In fact, if you go to the United Methodist Global Board of Higher Education and Ministry, I think is what it's called. I'll have a link in the description. And you look at the list of university seminaries that are on there, Duke is one of them. And so now with this split, here's the question that has to be asked. And people need to answer this. And local churches have a right to ask this question, because where is your pastor coming from? Which seminary are they coming from? Which train of thought are they coming from? If you are in a conservative-minded church, but you stayed with the United Methodist denomination because you didn't understand this whole going to a different denomination, or that the United Methodist was moving progressive, and what if this young lady, she was a second-year divinity student when she did this, she graduates, and now she's your pastor and you guys don't want to actually go in that progressive direction. And on the flip side of it, because I'm not going to be one-sided about this, what if you are a progressive church and you have a graduate from one of these United Methodist seminaries that is more conservative but is in the denomination, and they come into your church and they're pushing more traditional views? We'd like to think that there's going to be this easy split, but as I've been talking to people and hearing what's going on in the different conferences and the struggles that different denominational pastors are having at this point. In fact, I just talked to a pastor who's going to be trying to push legislation in his annual conference to clarify the whole category of paragraph 2553 on what else can the annual conference put on top of the pile of stuff that a local church has to do to leave. So there's a lot of uncertainty. I believe, and in prayer, that ethically, seminaries that are going to be sending their graduates into the United Methodist denomination need to have a clear doctrine of where they stand on things. And that's what I want to bring up with this. Our church, our ministry, the CTC, and Faith in the Forest, we have a very clear doctrine on where we stand on all the major issues and where we stand on biblical integrity. Some people on the conservative side might want to debate with me about it, and it's a doctrine that some people on the liberal side might want to debate with me about it. But it is a doctrine that we prayed on, we looked at the big aspect, we look at the historical context, we looked at biblical understanding, we looked at the times in antiquity to where they are today, and in the end of all of it, we came up with a doctrine that we believe has a balance between loving our neighbor as we love ourselves, so we do not outright condemn the LGBT community, but we also hold to biblical integrity, which is why I did the video on why I won't marry straight people, because people don't come to the church anymore because they want to put it before God. They do it because they want social issues. That's where we stand on it. And I share that because when we bring in new staff, when we start to grow in different areas and we need to move out in different areas, these are the things I'm going to be asking, and that our team will be asking. Which seminary did you go to, and what was the train of thought? Where were you at with things? This young lady right here would not qualify to work for our church. Not because of where she stands in the LGBT community, but because her biblical integrity and understanding is horrible. So what do you do? What's the next step? It's one thing for me to make these videos and go, hey, here's what's going on, but what do you do? Here's what you do. As your annual conferences are coming up, you need to have strong voices that are going to your annual conference and you're speaking up. If your pastors or your church leaders are trying to pass legislation to clarify a lot of this stuff and what's going on, you need to be there to make the vote. You need to be involved in it. You need to be a part of your SPRC. You need to actually push for your pastors. You need to call your pastors out on where they're at with doctrine. Make sure that your church has a clear standing on your doctrine. Make sure that you have a clear standing on your doctrine where you're at with these things. And again, this goes for everybody on the conservative side and the progressive side. You need to be firm on it. And you need to make sure that your spiritual leadership is firm on the same doctrine. And I would be asking and calling out each of these universities, each of these seminaries. Where are you on your doctrine? Duke Divinity, if you're going to be part of the United Methodist Church, then you need to be clear on where you're on with the doctrine, because if this is what you're going to teach now is just progressive spirituality, then you need to be clear that you are no longer going to be teaching a conservative aspect of biblical understanding. You don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to play this, well, we're non-denominational, and what is non-denominational? You know, that's a video that's going to come up too, is what is non-denominational? Those are the questions I have in this rambling little video. Again, there's going to be another video that talks more specifically about what this young lady said, and I'm going to have another video on the other auxiliary organizations that are affected by the United Methodist split. But you, as a small rural churches, where is your pastor coming from? Where do they stand on doctrine? What doctrine are they learning? If they're going to go through the course of study, which aspect are they going to be pushed at the course of study now through the Global Board of Higher Education and Ministry? Because if it's all going to be progressive, then maybe you should be going in a different direction. And that is coming up quick with the end of 2553, the paragraph, which will be ending in 2023. And I've heard that it's going to be a little more complicated and difficult in some of the conferences for churches that want to end up leaving under the other paragraph, where you just leave and go to a different denomination. All right, that's it for this video. Look for the next one when I talk more about what this girl had to say. All right, take care. God bless.